You can you hear me?
No.
You don't have volume?
No.
Oh boy.
Again?
Let me.
Anyways.
I'll be right back, I guess.
Okay, right there.
Have I got volume?
You're good.
Okay. Thank you, Craze Family Homestead, for coming out, and thank you for throwing the thumbs up there. I guess one of the things I wanted to talk about today is how the weather affects what we do in the garden, and particularly how it affects weeding and fertilizing and insect control. So I'm going to let a few more people get in here, and then we'll do that. But while we're waiting, what was that joke? I can't even remember it. I was going to tell you a joke, and I can't even remember it. Deborah's Delicious Dish, welcome. Thank you for coming in. So I guess we can get started. So one of the things that I've learned over the years when I've been growing a garden is that the weather dictates a lot of the things that you do. And that's one of the reasons why you have to be very proactive about things like planting and weeding. Last year, for example, we had a really difficult time getting the field planted. And the reason we had such a difficult time is we got a huge, huge amount of rain over a period of the month of April and then into May. We had a tremendous amount of rain. And I think last year I ended up getting my beets planted somewhere around late April, early May. And I didn't get tomatoes and peppers planted until well, I guess I did the tomatoes and peppers on end of May 31st. But as far as my cucurbits, my squashes, and watermelons and such, I didn't get them in last year until middle to end of June. And of course, then you just don't have time. Some of those things take 90 to 120 days. Our season just isn't that long. So it's important that you're ready to go when the weather gets decent. Jules Small Gardening, welcome to the live. Thank you for coming by. And so one of the things that I try to do is I try to put together a schedule based on my last expected frost date. And then I kind of play the game. I look at the weather and I watch if it's staying warm, then I might plant a little bit ahead of my scheduled time. Warren Lewis, welcome to the live. Appreciate you coming out. And so I'm going to keep sort of track of the weather. And if I think I can plant, I'll go ahead and plant, which leads us to today. We were in the 80s a couple of days ago, and today we dropped down to 50. And I don't know what we're supposed to drop down to tonight, but I'm concerned because I've got plants in the field that won't take a frost. And I've got plants in the my portable hoop house, and they might be able to take a frost, but it's going to be tough. Voon, welcome. Thank you for breakfast the other day. Voon gave me a great idea for breakfast, and I was able to chew it really well.
46 is going to be the low.
They're calling for 46 as the low, so that's not going to be terrible. But tomatoes and peppers aren't going to love that. They'll struggle through, but they're going to hurt a little bit, especially if they're already planted outside. But the other thing about weather is you can't wait to weed your garden until you have the day that you want to weed it on, because there are certain types of things that can be weeded when the ground is wet, but certain things can be weeded much more quickly when the weather is dry and when the ground is dry. Now, I talked a little bit about this last week, but if you have a large garden with straight rows, you can run down those rows with a hula hoe or an action hoe, and you can move pretty quickly on dry ground, cutting out things like thistle and water hemp and um, red root amaranth, Palmer amaranth, um, lamb's quarter, and you can move fairly rapidly through with a hoe and just hoe that stuff out. You'll save yourself, in my case, if I take an hour and weed that row when it's dry, I can cut those weeds out, like I say, in about an hour. But if I wait until those weeds get too tall to cut out and I've got to pull them out, then it could take me as much as a day to weed a row. So it makes a very significant difference whether you do things in the right timing. Now, when you cut weeds out, you're going to be back over and over again. Will It Grow? Welcome to the live. Thank you for coming out. When you cut them out with a hoe and the weeds are still alive, you'll pull some of them right out of the ground. And I try to push those into the center of my lanes so that if they do grow back, they'll be much easier to take care of because I can do it with the machinery. Once you get weeds that are more than 4 or 5 inches tall and they've got roots growing below them, those roots have been nourished by the not just the cotyledons, but they've got true leaves that have come out. Those weeds are going to be significantly more difficult to get rid of, and you may have to get right down on them and pull them out. I had about 150 feet of potato left to weed the other day, and I didn't think too much of it because they weren't calling for rain. Well, the next day I got some issues that made it so that I couldn't get into the garden, and I didn't get into the garden until last night, and we had a pretty significant amount of rain, about 1.5 inches of rain. Well, those weeds had gone from this tall on, say, Monday to that tall on Wednesday. And so we had to go in and hand pick all of those weeds. It takes significantly longer, and there's also a much greater chance if you're pulling a perennial weed, there's a much better chance that weed is going to come right back. Something like a crabgrass or Johnson grass or something like that. There's a very good probability that if you try to pull it out after it's more than, say, 2 or 3 inches tall, you're not going to get enough of the root out. Now, on the other hand, if you're pulling those taller weeds, if you can do it after the garden's gotten a good rain, you'll pull a significantly larger amount of the root out. And if you're pulling something that's growing on a rhizome, like some of the grasses, ryegrass, for example, will grow on a rhizome. If you get down and pull that out, you can sometimes pull the whole rhizome out. And so Wednesday, when I was weeding in damp soil, I was getting rhizome roots that were 2 feet long. And you'd pull up and you'd get the entire trail of those grasses would come out with one pull. So if you time it right, there are different techniques that can be used. But if you wait too long, it could get miserable. It'll take a lot longer once those weeds begin to get larger and established. It's the Vineyard Chicks. Welcome to the live. Thank you for coming out. I have to apologize both to Will It Grow and to the Vineyard Chicks. I had meant to get another Attorney at Play video out last Sunday, and I was miserable. And this whole week has been kind of touch and go. I wasn't even entirely sure I was going to be able to come on tonight, but I'm healing and things are getting a little bit better. But I will get a video out before the end of, by Sunday, naming the remaining foragers, and also revealing a new twist, I think, in the whole plot of Will It Grow versus the Vineyard Chicks. You know, it's not just a 1, 2, 3 kind of a court case. There's going to be some 4s, 5s, and 6s. And John, I'm sorry, you have to count them. You have to count them. So, John's going to go Gale lurk, I think. I think that's what he's going to go do. So, getting back now, the weather also dictates not just when you can plant and when you can weed, but also you want to keep an eye on weather before you fertilize. And if you're using a non-organic fertilizer, what I normally do is I will side dress within 2 to 3 inches off the side of the plant. If I was doing it mechanically, I'd probably be even as much as 6 inches off the plant. But I like to walk the lanes and put the fertilizer on by hand. It gives me a chance to look at everything as I'm going through. Steve, welcome to the live. And Living a Rogue Life, welcome to the live. I don't think I'm missing anybody. Jamie Coop, welcome to the live. So when you fertilize, you don't want the fertilizer to be directly on the plant. I used to take the fertilizer and I just cast it out like that and just go through the whole lane, and I was getting a 3-foot wide area. So I was wasting a lot of fertilizer, but I was also, fertilizer was landing on the leaves, and more importantly, down in the stem junctions where the side shoots come off. On a tomato, you'd call it a sucker, but on a potato, it really isn't. It's just greater leaf structure. And if that fertilizer sticks in there, it will tend, especially if it's part of the fertilizer that's high in nitrogen, it very well could burn that petiole right off, and you're doing more damage than good. You're trying to get things to grow. But the timing with fertilizer is you want to put fertilizer down. I like to put it down before a soft rain. If you get a really hard rain, that could create some problems of the fertilizer splashing up on the plants, especially if you're fertilizing like cabbage and broccoli, things where or greens of any kind, where they're down low and the fertilizer is going to splash up. So if you know you're going to get a light rain, it's hard to predict it, it's a good time to fertilize. The rain will incorporate that fertilizer into the ground really even better than you could if you raked it in. But you don't want to fertilize with a synthetic fertilizer and just leave it sit out in the sun, because the sun will degrade parts of the fertilizer, and especially it will degrade the nitrogen in the fertilizer. So you want to get your fertilizer down before a light rain. You want to get fertilizer down not on a hot day. That'll increase the stress that's put on the plants if they get slightly over fertilized. And you want to dress your fertilizer about 4 to 6, even 8 inches away from the plants themselves. And then your mycorrhiza fungi in many cases will bring the fertilizer to the plant. And you'd be amazed at how long the root hairs are on your plants and how far they go and how well they'll bring that nutrient into the soil. Doing things differently. Hello. One of the other things about fertilizer that you have to remember is plants move nutrients through the stems using a process called transpiration, and it's a transfer of water and all of the nutrients that plant is uptaking, and it's caused by evaporation on the leaves. The leaves are evaporating water through the stomatas, and they're pulling moisture up through the shoots, through the stems, and particularly for photosynthesis, but also to keep the plant cool in the warm weather. So if you fertilize and then you have a long period of cool weather, that's not going to be nearly as good as if you have some warm weather. And if it's very dry, the fertilizer is not going to be very effective either. So you want to make sure that you choose a time when the soil is getting, within a day or three, you're going to water, or there's going to be moisture getting into the soil. Doing things differently. Welcome to the live. I don't know if you've been here for a while. I just saw you there. And then the final thing where timing is very important is the timing on any kind of a pesticide, and that includes organic pesticides. In fact, it's probably even more important with organic pesticides to time things correctly. Generally speaking, this is not always the case, but generally speaking, you want to put any kind of a pesticide you want to put on your plants. And we don't use we use very few herbicides. Jandera, welcome to the live. We use very few herbicides, only grass killer really, and then some pre-emergent herbicides in onions and carrots and sometimes in beets, although I used it. You can't use trifluralin in beets. It will kill your beets. But I used a different pre-emergent in the beets this year, and it was completely ineffective. So you want to put down, particularly if you're putting down some kind of insecticide, you want to spray that insecticide in the evening. And preferably, Simply Jan's Homestead, welcome to the live. And I do go to your lives, Jan. I just don't always see them. Gardening done all wrong. Welcome. You're in the right place, because we do it all wrong here too. At least we don't make much money doing it, but it's a lot of fun. But when you spray insecticides, you want to do it now. You don't want the rain. You want to know that you've got 24 hours, and sometimes the label will tell you 48 hours of no rain. And the second thing you want to do is you want to make sure it's not an extremely, you don't want to do it in the heat of the day. You want to do it in the evening, so that that insecticide does not cause damage and cause stress to the plant, but mostly because at night, your honeybees, your mason bees, and your bumblebees, all of your pollinators, have gone to bed for the night. Now, there's not much you can do about ladybugs, or as I understand, they call them in Australia, ladybirds. I saw that on someone's video last week. But the ladybugs, Her Healthy Home, welcome. Thank you for coming out to the live. But you'll find that the ladybugs, I'm torn in a position here. I've got a lot of ladybugs in my potatoes, and I've seen 6 potato bugs, and I squashed a bunch of potato bug eggs. But I've got a lot of ladybugs, and if I spray for the potato bugs, I'm going to kill the ladybugs, and the ladybugs will eat the potato bug eggs. So I'm watching to see how much pressure the potato bugs are putting on the potatoes. And as soon as I see, even say 5% crop, I will spray it with imidacloprid. Imidacloprid will kill those potato bugs. Now, it's not an organic insecticide. Last year, I played around with organic insecticides on potato bugs, and it's a mistake I won't repeat. So the first organic insecticide that people use is neem oil. And neem oil is an effective insecticide if it actually coats the insect. So you don't want to use neem oil when the insects have gone to sleep. You want to do it when they're out there on the plant. And so you have to use neem oil sort of mid-morning to afternoon, late afternoon. You don't want to do it right at the heat of the day because it'll dry up too quickly. But you want to spray when the plants are active on the vines. And in certain cases, you only want to spray the bugs that are there. You don't even want to spray a plant if it doesn't have bugs. Any rain will take that neem oil right off of the plant, and so it's not going to do any good. Very little of the residue left on the plant will have any effect on the insects. Lori's World, hello and welcome to the live. Yeah, Steve, we've got rather significant damage on our beans from flies, from probably white flies or aphids. I don't know which at this point. But I've seen them on the potatoes, and it terrifies me because I need to have a crop of potatoes this year. We had a poor crop last year, and I mean a terrible crop last year. I've got some big potato plants. I got some plants that are 8-9 inches tall and nice big around. They look great, but man, those potato bugs can devastate them. And last year, I didn't see potato bugs on any of the plants until middle of June. And by the middle of July, they had devastated my field. So the next organic that you can put on for potato bugs would be, well, you could actually, before you even do neem oil, you could try insecticidal soap. But again, that's only going to kill the things that it hits. You can spray underneath the leaves and it'll dislodge the eggs and they'll perish on the ground. But if you only have, maybe 100 plants, you could do that. But we've probably got 2,000 plants, something like that. So to take the time to get every one of them, and then with potato bugs, there's a cycle. And so you have to spray for 3 weeks. You have to keep the bugs off the plants for 3 weeks. So if you're using neem oil, probably every other day, you're going to have to spray those plants. If you're using insecticidal soap, every day, maybe twice a day. If you're using BT, the nice thing about BT is it's actually systemic to the plant. And so chewing bugs will chew on it and die. BT is of the organic pesticide, insecticides that I've used. BT is probably the best. The problem with it, it does not kill the Colorado potato bug, or at least it doesn't do a great job of it. The other problem really with BT is that it's in the plant for about a week, and then the plant has expelled it all. And so you've got to spray about once a week. And BT is relatively expensive. Now, it won't hurt you even if you spray it on yourself. It's not a good thing. You might get a stomach ache or something like that. But it won't cause you an illness. The problem with the BT is that just like the imidacloprid, it has the potential to get up into the flowers and kill your pollinators. So it's something you want to use carefully. So doing things differently says, any suggestion on how to get rid of or tame ants? Well, you're not going to tame ants, but getting rid of them, I'll tell you, there's been a number of wives' tales about how to get rid of them. And I'm trying to remember the one that I read the other day, that it was something that you pour on the ants and they leave, and I can't remember what it was, but it doesn't work anyway. The best thing you can do to get rid of anthills, if you've got 2 anthills and they're separated by at least several feet, take a coffee can, scoop up the anthill with some of the ants in it. You got to get a lot of them. Go over to the other anthill, scoop up a coffee can full of those ants. dump the ants from pile 2 into pile 1, dump the ants from pile 1 into pile 2, and they will kill each other. And you may not completely get rid of them. And I know this works with fire ants as well. Good night, Voon. Thank you for coming. But they will fight to the death, and you will dramatically tame that herd anyway. But unless it's fire ants, if you're just looking at ants in the garden, they really don't hurt anything. They will, tear apart or decimate fruit that drops on the ground or fruit that gets damaged. They'll eat right. You'll see. We've all seen ants on a tomato hanging from a vine, but the ants didn't penetrate that skin. That skin was broken or torn, and the ants got in, and then they ate all of the fruit out. But if the fruit is solid, they're not going to get into it. And so I don't get too concerned about them unless they're creating a nuisance in some other way. And I have no reason not to get rid of them. We used to have some fairly large ant hills up by where I'm planting. This year I've got my garlic and my onions, or my shallots, and actually right where I planted my corn, which is right next to the shallots. And what I did is I took a shovelful of one and a shovelful of the other, making sure you get plenty of ants up in there, and dump them across, and they will fight to the death. Sure. So with the vineyard, now I'd be curious. I don't want to say this because I have no experience with grapes. Are they getting in and destroying decent grapes, or do the grapes have some kind of rupture to the skin of the grape, and then the ants get into that? Now, sometimes ants will also get into the stems or the shoots, and what they're going for is they're trying to get the sap, which is the nutrient, running up and down through the stem, and it can look like the ants are doing a lot of damage, but it may just be that the damage is there, and then the ants are making that damage very apparent. And of course, it's kind of like when a chicken finds an egg and eats it, it knows it's delicious, and so then you got a chicken that's eating eggs. And if you've got a chicken that is eating eggs, well, then you've got a stewing hen. So you got to be careful about that. Britain Farm Homestead, welcome to the live. I didn't see you come in, so welcome to the live. And if anybody here is in here and I haven't said hello, it is completely in error. So a couple of things, and then we'll open up the chat and just talk. I'll try to keep up with the chat a little better. Starting on the 1st of June and running through to the 7th of June, we have Godfest, which is a group of pastors. Country Homestead Preacher is one of them. Beneath the Cross is another one of them. There's a few others, and myself. And we're going to take turns. Each one of us will have a night, and we're going to give a message. It's going to be at 7 o'clock Standard Time, and or Central Time. I'm sorry, 7 o'clock Central Time. I have a commercial that I was going to play, but I can't do that on the YouTube live. So next week I'm going to try to come on with StreamYard so I can play that commercial for you. But if you'd like to join in on that, that would be much appreciated. And let other people know that it's going to happen. I think it's going to be a good time. Well, living the rogue life, you said you have a problem with ants on your okra, or do you say okra? I put Vaseline on the base of the stem about 1 inch above the ground, and it works. Well, Vaseline is not going to hurt the plant at all, so that would be a good a good method, because the ants aren't going to be able to, they're going to get stuck in the Vaseline. It's not so much that they'll slip off, I don't think, but they'll get stuck in that Vaseline. And I would imagine that that is going to last on there for a period of time. Now, when you put the Vaseline on, do you put it on kind of thick so it's kind of pasty, or do you put it on thin so that it's slick? I'd like to know the answer to that, because I'm thinking that that might even be a method that someone with a small number of potatoes, they might be able to do it. Although potato bugs can fly, I don't think the larvae can, but potato bugs can certainly fly. Vineyard Chick says to living a road life. Dad does that on the base of his lemon trees too. You're growing lemon trees in Michigan? That's awesome. I didn't think lemon trees would grow. I know they won't grow here, but maybe if I took them in, maybe that's what you're doing. You do a video on your lemon trees. I want to watch that. And Jan, yes, I agree. I think it's going to be a great week. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I know for me, it'll be a lot of fun. I hope it's a lot of fun for people who are viewing. So Jendera did a video, and you should check it out. She does videos on Sunday nights, and this last Sunday night, she read a children's book that talks about abiding in the vine. And I think, Jan, I think you'd enjoy it. I know there are quite a few other people who would enjoy it, and I think it was really well done. So Living the Rogue Life says she puts it on slightly thick. It breaks the trail and the ants won't cross it. Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I would think that if it's a little thick, they get their little feet stuck in there and they wouldn't be able to. I don't know if ants have feet. They got legs, right? So they must have feet. And they're able to climb their way up. If anybody has any questions or comments or things that they want to mention, will it grow? You're back. Please feel free, and I'll try to keep an eye on the chat, and we can kind of open this up. While I'm awaiting that, Mother Goose, my wife Sandy, is going in tomorrow to the hospital for some surgery, and it's not a major, well, I don't really want to say it that way. It isn't an emergency thing, and but any surgery is going to be tough, and this is going to be they're going to open up her stomach and remove some scars and some masses that have occurred there, and so keep her in your prayers. We'd sure appreciate it, and just she's watching the comments, so throw a comment in the comment section if you'd like to let her know you're going to keep her in your prayers. And I want to thank everybody who's prayed for me. My blood pressure actually came down quite a bit after my teeth were pulled. So I'm down in the 140s now, which is much better than what it was. And I appreciate everyone who thought of me and prayed for me. I appreciate that a lot. Oh, Vineyard Chicks mentions you can see how he stores them for the winter in our trailer video. Oh, okay. They go in the greenhouse and it's double covered. Yeah. My hoop house is going to have only a single cover on it. I've thought about putting a double cover. I've thought about, well, I plan to heat my raised beds. I've already set some things, prepared some things so that I can heat the raised beds. And if I heat the raised beds, I think enough heat will radiate off of that to heat the greenhouse itself, or the hoop house itself, and make it a greenhouse instead of just a high tunnel. Thank you for all who are commenting, offering your prayers. I appreciate that. So one of the things that Amy got me thinking about this week, I had noticed that I hadn't seen her for a while on any of the lives, and I've noticed that quite a bit. But I also noticed that she wasn't putting out videos, and so the other day I just sort of commented on one of her older videos, and she said, "Well, life gets busy," and that's right, and that's another reason why timing is so important, because you will need time, especially if you've got any size of a garden at all. It can become overwhelming, and you need to take time away from the garden. This is something that Sandy, my wife, has to remind me of a lot, especially when the summer really gets into the season. We're just sort of dabbling at the edge of the season right now. Things are growing pretty well, so I'm thinking we're going to have a good season. But I get a little overwhelmed and a little panicky about getting out and weeding, because if you don't, it gets away from you. And sometimes I forget to sit down and relax and enjoy the summertime. So especially, I know I'm not raising little kids anymore, but when I was, there's no way we could have taken on an endeavor like we have. I wish we had done more gardening when the kids were younger and they were able to get involved in it more for their own sake, not for the free labor of it, although that might be nice too. But yeah, when I watch some of the sites and I see that young people involved in the gardening, and I'm not just talking about the vineyard chicks, but they're certainly a great example. And I know that mom and dad are working in the background a little bit, but to see the amount of knowledge and the amount of interest that they have in that, it's really a testimony to who they are. And I appreciate the ability to watch those videos and see what they're up to. And that goes across the boards. Lucky Luke does that on his site. I see it on a lot of them. Yeah, Britton Farm mentions, she says, you got that right, Chicken Johnny. When the gardening and canning season merge, it's busy, busy, busy. I will tell you, and I don't think that anyone who's ever grown a garden, of any size, certainly, I don't think anyone would ever disagree with me. The most time-consuming part of the gardening is not the weeding, because if you walk away from it, you pay a price, but you don't feel as bad about walking away from weeding. But when it comes time to harvest, and you're harvesting for your own use, and you're going to put it up, you're going to can it. I only have a few harvests of pickles that I saved last year. And I actually, when I did my pickle spears, I messed up the recipe, and I made kerosene pickles. They were just awful. They were the most disgusting, terrible thing I'd ever made. And so I wasted I put up 24 quarts, and I forget exactly what I did wrong in the recipe, but
you put the vinegar in and no water.
I think I put all vinegar and no water. I think that's what I did, or not enough water, one of the two. And it was just, my goodness, I can't believe that anything can be that terrible, but it was. And so, yeah, we couldn't even feed them to the chickens. But you're right. When you get into that season where you're putting up vegetables, you're harvesting, man, you better not have a lot else to do. And we harvest primarily every Friday. Now, I have a walk-in cooler that I can use. So if we harvest things early, we can keep them in the cooler. And that works out fairly well. But the problem is that things get spongy in the cooler, and We've had some problems with the cooler freezing up, and then and that's mostly because you open the door, you put all those warm vegetables, and if we're going to put them in the cooler, we wash them first, and so they all go into that cooler, and all that moisture freezes up the evaporator coil inside the cooler. So last year we tried something different, and that is that we harvested on Friday for market. We only harvested on Friday. We only sell on Saturday. And so there were pickles that had to be harvested during the week. Well, with pickles, I imagine we could put those in the cooler and save them. But what I did is I started putting those up, or Mama Goose would cut them up and make refrigerator pickles with them. And I really love refrigerator pickles in the summertime. I'd rather have them than the vinegar canned pickles, but you just get too many of them really to do anything with. But on Friday, we'll start harvesting at 8 o'clock in the morning, or sometimes a little earlier than that. You sort of want the dew to come off. And when you harvest, take your big vegetables out first before it gets heat on it. And then you want to take those vegetables and put them in a cool, dark, dry place, and they'll last till tomorrow when you take them to market. So Steve is asking, do I have a drying rack using some box fans? Yes, for sweet potatoes and potatoes, if I'm going to cure them, with potatoes, I leave them out on the drying rack in the sun. I don't use box fans. But before I have a trailer that I lay them out on. Same thing with the onions. Now, I've been told, I've never experienced this myself, but I've been told that you should never put onions and potatoes on the same rack when you're drying them. You should separate them by many feet. And the reason is that the onions will cause the potatoes to rot. Now, I haven't had that experience, and I have kept onions and potatoes in close proximity down in my cellar. But I've been told that you shouldn't put onions and potatoes together. So I've been avoiding that recently. But I do put them on the drying rack, keep them out in the sun. My rack, I can actually move because it's on a trailer, and I can move it into the building. So when evening comes, I put it in the building so I don't get as much dew on the potatoes, and then we pull it out for the sun for the next day. You do that for about a week, and then you can take them in and store them. Now, having them cure outside like that causes the skin to get thicker, and it causes them to dry a little bit on the top eighth of an inch, gets a little drier. I like to roll them over so that you get both sides. Now with us, we generally don't put the potatoes in storage. We keep them in the barn on the trailer to go to market, and they hold up really well as long as you cure them initially. You can't just take them out of the ground and put them in a bucket. So
what we have, there's air that flows underneath.
Yes. When they're in the rack, the air can flow underneath it naturally. And I did put some box fans on last year because it was getting kind of damp and warm in that barn, and so I did have some fans going on in there. We have never, doing things differently, we've never done any freeze drying. Somebody was talking about that the other day, or did a video on it, and the equipment is pretty expensive, so unless you're pretty dedicated to it, it might be difficult. Now, what Sandy does is we call it flash drying, but she'll take peppers and she'll cut them up, take the seeds out and cut them up, and she'll lay them on a cookie sheet, put them in the freezer, freeze them, and then take them out and put them into plastic bags and suck and seal those bags, and then do that quickly so that they stay frozen, put them into the freezer, and that they seem to hold up pretty good. There's nothing like fresh, but they hold up pretty good.
Dehydrating too.
And then we do we do some dehydrating. We're doing more and more of it as we push further. Yeah, so Steve is mentioning that we really haven't had enough rain. I heard on the news on Tuesday that we were 8 inches less rain than we've had in the last 6 years. In other words, any year in the last 6 years up until this date, we're 8 inches short. Now, to be honest with you, I would rather have a year like this because I can put water on my garden. I have a real tough time taking it off. We do dewater, but dewatering is a dirty, messy, muddy job, and you have to have some place to put the water. If you don't have some place to put the water, then you know dewatering is a moot point.
Jan's garage flooded.
But what's that? Oh,
Grace Family Homestead. They had 2 weeks of rain and their garage flooded.
yeah. I mean, when you get too much rain, I've had several years now. I don't think any of those videos are on YouTube. I think all of them are on Facebook. But I've had several years where half of my garden was underwater. In fact, one night I was out planting acorn squash, and I was planting them from transplants, which I don't do anymore. I just direct seed all my squashes, and I was out transplanting, and I had about 20 left, and Sandy came out and said, "Hey, listen, you got to come in. It's gonna start raining." And I said, "Yeah, I want to get the last of these acorn squashes planted because this rain will be good for them. You know, you get things planted, and boy, get some rain on them, and they'll do well." So I went in to the house, and 3 days later it stopped raining, and we had every single one of the acorn squash. I had put them on hills, and every one of them was underwater. And out of that whole group, we saved 5 out of, I imagine there was 50, either 50 or 75. There probably was 50. And, you know, it was a slim year on acorn squash. Now, Jan is saying that their ground's saturated. We did get some rain Wednesday, and then we got quite a heavy rain over the evening. But Wednesday night, you know, between Tuesday and Wednesday night, the ground was dry enough to walk on. There was no mud. And then we got a little bit of rain today. So it's nice, slow, let's call it a drizzle, but it lasted long enough that I think it made a difference. I know I can't walk out in the field today, so that's a good thing, really. Now I'm sort of hoping it dries up. I've got tomatoes to go in, peppers to go in, and I'd like to do that this weekend. In fact, I'm going to do it one way or the other this weekend, and it's hard to plant in wet ground, but I'll have to figure out some answer. So yeah, this is the driest spring that I can remember, certainly in the last 5 or 6 years. Yeah, Vineyard Chicks, they're on the other side of the pond from us, Lake Michigan. And I'll bet you in the wintertime, you guys get a lot of snow. We get snow, but we don't get a lot of, you know, we don't get 2 feet or 3 feet of snow at a time. And I know when I lived by the lake, we would sometimes get dumped on, and you'd get several feet of snow. Steve's got San Marzano tomatoes already on the plant. That's pretty good. You got in early. You got lucky.
Forming.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Craze Family Homestead, if I remember correct, you're in Ohio? Britton Farm Homestead says that fried green tomatoes are the first meal that she has from the garden every year. The first meal that I have from the garden is probably kale, but that's not a meal, obviously. But the first thing that we cook is probably kale. And then I would think probably beets would be the next thing that we harvest to eat. Beets and maybe peas. We get peas pretty early. This year I'm not going to have any peas. None of them came up, and I think maybe I had I buy peas in 2-pound bags, and then I use them for several years, and they usually stay pretty good. But these might have gotten wet or something, or maybe I planted them too deep, or who knows.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, gardening done all wrong. We backfill with compost when we are forced to plant in wet ground. That would actually, I support that. I think that'd be great. Oh, Amy's out in Oklahoma. Thank you, John. Yeah. Grace Family Homestead, I also am going to have my tomatoes in my polytunnel. Hopefully we'll get the plastic on there pretty soon. We haven't done it. We've just, as much as I say it's been a good dry year, we have had just an incredible amount, a disgustingly incredible amount of wind. And we get wind every year. Wind is always bad here, but it is much worse this year than I can remember. J.A. Wild Music, welcome to the live.
Kale salad. Tell her about the kale salad we have with the strawberries.
Kale salad. I don't remember that.
Or beets. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, we mother makes kale with beets, and we'll do a video on it. But she does beets and kale, and it's fantastic. Oh, Vineyard Chicks has relatives near us. Very good. Kale salad. Now you're making me wish I had teeth. Well, I will soon. So that's coming soon. So I'm just trying to catch up on the live here. Oh, you got a video on fried green tomatoes. Britton Farms. So I'll have to go there. I have never had a fried green tomato. And there's a lot of things that I've had recently that I'd never tried. Okra is one of them. And we're attempting to grow okra again this year. Hopefully it succeeds. If not, I have relatives who can grow me some okra down in Alabama. So, and Bob, if you're watching, talk to Palmer over there.
We can make you a kale salad smoothie.
Who said that? Kale salad smoothie. Yeah, I suppose you can put anything in a blender and drink it. I don't know. Oh, that's Amy. Yeah. Yeah, I tried to, I forget what it was. I tried to eat a meatball the other day. That didn't work out so well. But I'm getting closer to being able to eat again.
Mashed potatoes.
Actually, I to show you how I am not an organic gardener, I have been eating powdered mashed potatoes, or whatever you call those, out of the box. For about 5 days, I had them for 3 meals a day. but I make them with beef broth instead of water. And then I was eating a lot of Jello and some sugar-free pudding and
Applesauce.
lots of applesauce. And then recently I've started some scrambled eggs and that kind of thing. But we'll eventually we'll look back at these times and laugh. Hydroponic kale, gardening done all wrong. Planted hydroponic kale, and it's outgrowing in the ground kale by at least 4 times. Yeah, I think. Oh, Amy, lots of bananas too. And when after I first got back from the dentist, I tried eating a banana, and it was way too painful. But about 3 days after, I was able to smash up a banana, and that was like a treat. So,
Jan's got a bunch of strawberries going.
yeah, Living a Rogue Life says that she's had the worst luck with strawberries. I have too. We have always bought the strawberry plants, and Sandy's got 2 big barrels that we made last year, and they're filled with strawberries. They seem to be doing really well. We haven't gotten any strawberries yet. We're getting close, and then this cold weather maybe put that off a little bit. But I've got a little gutter that I planted strawberries from seed in, and they're starting to come along. And Sandy has a little urn or a flower pot that she planted seeds in, and those are doing phenomenally well. But she used coconut coir. I've never used coconut coir before, and next year I'm going to use a lot of coconut coir. I really like how it retains water and keeps it even, you know. John, I had 11 teeth pulled in 3 hours. No Novocaine, nothing.
Whatever.
I don't know what was in that needle that they shot 15 times into my head, but no, lots of Novocaine. And dipping the banana. I'm going to have some pudding later tonight. I'm going to dip my banana. It's pistachio pudding, so I'm going to have to sift out the pistachios, but I still have a few teeth left I can do that with. You know, you young people, take care of your teeth. You don't want to get to my age and lose your teeth. It's not fun. John, Vineyard Chicks just got you. They just got you good. They asked, will it grow? You're not counting Mr. Johnny's teeth, are you? That's funny. That's about the funniest thing I've heard all night. So
Yes, everybody's they're planting. They had to take 2 plants.
Oh, so I'll give you an update. I'll probably do this on a video in a couple of weeks, but an update on my grocery store plants. The peppers that I planted took off. They're just amazing. I had to upplant some of them because I planted them all in one pot. So I separated a bunch of them out. I got about 25 planted separate. Now I've got another maybe 30 of them that I need to separate out again from the pot. They've done marvelously. On the other hand, my strawberries that I got from the grocery store, I haven't seen a cotyledon one. Gail Southern Living, hello, welcome to the live. In fact, I have an okra plant growing out of that tub, and I don't know where that okra seed came from, but So, Steve, I'm not sure I'm understanding what you're asking. So ask it again. Living a Rogue Life, you take care of yourself. We appreciate you stopping by. I think we're going to shut down here in just a few minutes. Really appreciate all you stopping by. It's been a fun night. As I've sort of relaxed a little bit more with these lives, I think I get just as much out of them as I put into them, and I really appreciate everyone coming by. Willie Grow, you're going to have your day in court. It's coming. Oh, no, actually, I'm just getting a denture. There won't be any implants at all. So it's just what is it? Fixodent is all I'm going to have to hold them in. They gave me a denture, and I'd put it in, but I can't talk at all with it in. And if I try to talk, I end up wanting to throw up. The gag reflex in the back of my mouth gets triggered, and I just can't take it. But I expect by next week the swelling will have gone down more, and I'll be able to wear that, I hope. But Chris's Clever Craft, hello, welcome to the live. We're just about to go off, but thank you for coming in anyway. Slam down that thumbs up button, and if you're watching this on the replay, leave a comment. It's the best thing you can do to help everyone's channels is to just comment on their channel, even if it's just a matter of saying hi. So I think we'll go ahead and close this down. Thank you, Vineyard Chicks. I don't feel terrible, but my jaw starts to hurt, and right now it's kind of hurting. So, Chris, that's quite all right. Thank you for dropping by anyway. But good night to everyone. I'm Chicken Johnny. In Mitzer Shem, I'll see you again. Eat your vegetables. Don't forget about Godfest, the 1st through the 6th of June, or 1st through the 7th of June. And I've got a video coming up on the tools I use for weeding my garden. That should be out in the next couple of days. It was supposed to be out last week, but I just couldn't make it happen. Good night, everybody.